Hello, American world. Most people don't give away their ideas for scripts and books. But you guys, I mean, it's so crazy. There are so many helms that everyone grew up thinking someone was at the helm. There's no one at the helm. Everyone, since before, it was on books against Native Americans. The breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method, a criminal insidiousness delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. I'm not a police force. I'm not a criminal, not a judge, nothing. Thank God for them. Thank God for know. But in other words, certain type of victim slash hyper victim, victim predator, hyper predator. Everyone stayed, and the reason everyone stayed is with all identity of the ground locations before the known employments and unknown mixed with that of those natures connect. There were the employments by that breaching method, which made Native Americans against Native Americans after it had been sustained long enough, after they had converted them, no longer capable of sustaining what most probably and more practically and demonstrably as invisible but still discernible distinct identities of reasons, of hyper evidential proofs that Native American, to speak about a Native American history properly, or any history properly, one has to use phrases like criminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. One needs to use phrases like delusions. Since founding, doctors have been recorded. There are means to observe them recorded. Ones of mental health, pretending people had spoke words, fabricating records, so they could pretend people had delusions when they have the delusions that are relevant. Our founders asked us not to call debate about the Constitution, use that as means to deny someone the nature of a calm means and or or even any means. They won't let people sickly, distinctly, calmly, or aggressively. They're lying about our behavior at other locations behind our backs. Everyone, and this is relevant where and how everyone's names pulled into instances and where they employ that. So there are only three branches of government, and exception nature tied to them. It was employing everyone to roles, maintaining everyone else, forced, tricked, or persuaded to leave out finite details, the order of the value of the order of the finite with logic, while pretending other as a logic gate, where and how space slash the identity as space slash existence, as each identity of volume has relativity to what is positive and negative simultaneously. Exactly because, and hyper additionally, because identity does. It's value to identity system, but this is by the course of black pupils, whites of eyes unabridged. Unabridged, so it is signed how it is sickly, distinctly abridged against Native Americans. If we could discern that, because they're the same human species body of volume, people speak that, but they left and leave out and don't discern where and how they had assigned that hyper addition, those words that everyone would have been speaking, had the colonists themselves not had their education and all formal sophistication and non-sophistication having been raw appearing to be collusions and even where and how, as conclusions, as one specifically to maintain, worse than obfuscated, how the identity as space/existence uses exceptions in exception nature, uses words like value, uses words like identity, uses the value of the parabola, non distinctly from how math does, but distinctly from it. So if we're going to debate this, the use of knowledge of the sciences, knowledge is used to get over on life. But this is a part after the part in the Old Testament, for example, that says all you have to understand is to hear. The Old Testament and the Quran were written with consciousness that knew all identities at all identity ground locations, including the people preserving the Quran and preserving the Old Testament, New Testament, whatever they call the Bible. They would stay collusion, / not wanting to be differentially criminally foreign influenced, but using that logic only, positive and negative treatments, identity treatments as that certain type of victim / hyper victim. That now, when I say predator, this is everyone only heard the law interpreted as who should be heard. And especially, don't forget, this is a trap we're in from semi-ancient times. Prepare our minds, but free our hearts to sense. In other words, there are proofs when the Legion was first revealed of the ancient republic, which was a grouped identity, more probably, more perfectly, it is to tell not only its history, because that's our history, the republic which we stand, for which we stand, America, and republics of other republics base. This is because the ancient republic had to do with where and how the ancients, before the semi-ancient sciences became criminally foreign influenced, the sciences were led by how there are 5 distinct identities of order. The value of truth before the order of the finite now, the smallest finite detail now. And note, this is in space/existence, which makes more of itself we know by having more temporary come into it. It's like the microchips to make more temporary, hyper additional locations. In other words, non-distinctly from how computers work is how nature works. And they have to mimic it because it also distinctly works from that, how they work. And everywhere they could do something better or worse, the syntax treatments of that are employed to get over on simultaneous. All positive, anything time you have a positive treatment, we're supposed to know this is about the discernment of identities, identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that as 3 states of itself in generation by that which is 2 identities of order simultaneously with this. And our logic could accord with that which is the value of the order of the finite and the value of the value of truth before our time, before the order of the finite. That truth has value, has an only increasing value. For example, is the truth that a breaching method had been sustained against Native Americans before our founders' parents were even born. had been sustained against them. The Native Americans. And then, however they came to the records, and whatever records are standing, and they have an identity of relationship also to the voices. We knew that they have to use those records as the use of experience, and or what's your source? In other words, they left out how all the database relationships have been employed criminally for and influenced. A part of it, way worse than just a torture method, way worse than just an extortion method. But it was those things too, consciously. It was a multi-front. It is a multi-front order against the order of humanity. It knew that modern countries could be forced, hurt, tricked, persuaded to self-value themselves as formal predators with time treatments, fact, cheaping nature, predicate, acts roles, as styles of logic that could be increasingly at the same time with the overt criminal enterprises. That and how they brought up what witch trials is about, leaving out the phrase criminally for and influenced, leaving out phrases like delusions is relevant. So in other words, leaving out how they set those crazy laws up and things that no one would want to take part with because they did it in phases. And they effectively, there are means to observe what is hyper-evidential. There are hyper-evidential proofs. They did it effectively, consciously, having people blame other things, others, or selves for what roles with the breaching method was causing. And causing it through the other countries individually grouped in together. Because now they were, when defending themselves in their fact treatments, countering things like criminal insidiousness, for example, of positive and negative treatments by people. If you have those crazy laws on everyone, witch trials, slavery, this, that, and that's sustained, right? And this is still sustained against Native Americans, no. And they're measuring and maintaining not just the Native Americans that they're using other words. They're not that consciousness. That is an identity trying to voice. Short words saying, in other words, this is not the course of Black pupils, white divides, unabridged. There's a breaching method here. No matter, we don't have to, even if we don't, in other words, the breaching method uses people blaming others. So increasingly, the sequence shifts are not allowed spoken about, or they attach that person to fake words. Any leader, no matter how powerful they get, they are only an individual, finite voice. And only an individual, finite voice could defend the finite. A group, one person speak for them. In other words, there are reasons people yell at groups, at group differences. Because of the nature of the same people in the background pretending to be against bullying. No. Bullying is our own measure and maintain. Other than the breaching methods. Members too. Our countries are shared, individually grouped and together on and off campuses. And that makes them seem like they're distinct identities. But they have had shared relationships with identity ground locations, like corners of streets, corners of highways, corners of routes, corners of buildings, corners of fields. corners even of the sky, the four directions. The hypersimultaneous is constant some ways, is variable other ways. But where and how it is variable. It is also increasingly relevant where and how that variability is coupled with Earth's special difference and with the value of our quality of diffusion. Where and how it is that part of us that is outside of ourselves, that has already been outside of ourselves before it was in ourselves, then it was in ourselves, now it's out. Because it's its identity of relationship to itself as an identity of volume, as an identity of hypervolume, rather. Those are two distinct ways. It is hyper invisible, but still discernible to us. And the only increasing value of that is another way. It is increasingly, it is hyper invisible, but still discernible. And we can discern the conjunction of this Trinity. No, this being distinct from the Trinity, taught to us through the nature of religion and through the physics of religion and through the identity / IES of religion. Note now, all voices being and having been entertaining systems and uses of words that left out where and how it uses them. It uses exception. It is one identity of hypervolume, except for where and how it is 5 distinct identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. Just like the cells of our body. Just like how being an individual is being a distinct identity of sequence / simultaneous nature. And you're from a location, an area, you're an age, you're a sex. Any difference, physical, any difference made up, could only be inside. A little piece, in other words. So there are proofs that the Legion was revealed in ancient times. And then in semi-ancient times, now that sciences became criminally foreign influence, they could no longer afford the history of any location to be told correctly. There are proofs that there was an equivalent of what the Legion was revealed as in Africa and in China and in America, and that it went with the tribe. And though this is more probable and is more practical and is demonstrable, and it is important to begin with a counterposition that is more probable, because we could use the volume of science itself, knowing it and understanding how it, observing it, being and having been abridged, and uses of that are right there to observe too, and use of that. Hello, my Dr. Brian Adams. I would get in trouble if I said I was a doctor. But thank you, Ron. Could you speak a little bit about how about the bagels? What about the bagels, Ron Adams? So I'm speaking about Legion And there were other countries equivalents in where how in all locations, areas, and states, everywhere the species body is. Since semi-ancient times, people have been preventing others the short words. People have been pretending passions and emotions at each age sickly distinctly relative to the victim, hyper victim reactions slash hyper victim because they employed this too. And when I say they, I mean the roles with the breaching method consciously being and having been present. Which trials, real or made up? Even if they were made up, there are proofs with other things like slavery, North and South colonies having been sustained after and while that breaching method had been sustained against Native Americans, themselves employed to roles, not just physically, but syntactically, as in where and how actually we are manifest. I tell the best vaccines. I teach us things. The species longs. So, sing songs. But so in other words, the Legion and there's other nations equivalents first came about because humanity had to come together to get over being preyed upon. There's also more probable and necessary to counter theorize and or to counter convict this. Also, where and how people pretended passions and emotions, and especially when they speak that, because passions and emotions are about the simultaneous, and when there are singular subjects, that too is about the identity of the simultaneous, the hyper simultaneous. All plurality is hyper conjunctive to it. The boxing's five branches sit. Stand down. It's not, in other words, I'll gather around. Because you guys are citizens too. And no one is safe. At any location since semi-ancient times, where and how we are qualities where and how we are forever's course. There are proofs that heaven and hell were revealed as scientific tools in relationship to this. There are proofs, maybe not consciously, but it could have been consciously, for example, plausibly. There's a Strunk White, and there's a book they have where they say good writing is vigorous and concise. Note how concise leaves out details. See, there is a nature and method of hypercriminal insidiousness / criminal insidiousness that had bound distinct identities of logic, of styles of logic, of natures of logic at all locations. Then the industries. First, it tactically denatured all identity of the ground locations. One of the proofs of that is who's going to deny it or the significance of it. There's going to be proofs inherent, active, and increasingly progressive to their logic. Just like if anyone denies the logic of someone trying to say the course of black pupils / whites of eyes is abridged and has been abridged when confronted by others. For example, because this is one of the things it did effectively. It knew there's only 3 branches of government. and that could keep and that and how effectively could keep each age and member of their families as a certain type of victim slash hyper victim with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and other as identities and natures of like wrongdoers and things relative to this serious hyper predicate acts delivery system method. When you take the course of black pupils, whites of eyes, and abridge it and couple it with torture and identity thefts and frauds, and then let alone lock rolls with it as everyone in place, and that's sustained. And while no one was looking at when they were blaming the real things, I mean, the things that it caused for real, and it was increasingly, though, they were using that to make things up simultaneously. And then until they were a state where they're constantly making things up because that's all they have ever known. And so this is relevant also to where and to how they use the corners of streets, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the interbranch are kept needing to hide the same sequence shift, finite active progressive lies. This is per relative to where and to how our values, like since before our founding parents were born, the design of the suburbs, and everyone to be fit to the economy as victims not realizing slash hyper victims not realizing. Was multi-front upon themselves, upon three identities of each self: cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall, individual grouped, species, body, of volume. See, now when someone speaks for humanity, it has to be through a filter. The short words are that there is a hyper-native education that we were all parted from. And there were other short words. And there were other motivations, narratives behind them. But they cannot defend themselves legitimately. So they increasingly self-value what was left entrenched because it is like themselves, facilitated means to hide how they were blaming other things, others, ourselves for the real cause of negative value nature progressions acts and nature, like with the January 6th treatments. Even if made up of the whole thing with staged actors, what it is about always true. There was recorded before that happened and was reported to happen by CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News, for example, the January 6th attack on the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and the responses afterwards, like with a cop who swears a lot, and the way he looks into the camera all the time. Now, these are police formed foreign and domestic with all kinds of physical delusions that are formally as the experts on logic. Part of the reason they've been getting away, there's been various natures of courts and all the nature of courts too, individually grouped and together, all the state judicial branch offices. There is a witness protection program with a whole bunch of people tied to police forms and the training of them intercampuses, to judicial locations in the training of their positions, intercampuses of each age and nature, and per phenomenon not realized, mixed with what's in other words, there are increasing evidences generated from where and how they had slavery entrenched North and South colonies since before our founding parents were even born, and the suburbs design set up. and all those crazy laws against everyone. But rather than blaming that breaching method, which is evidence, other was blamed as styles of the shown to pretend to use methods like, oh, what's your evidence? If someone says that, uses what is hyper evidential we know is true always. It was demonstrated that the use of the word divide and conquer is relative to where and how the military there is a complete possession / hyper possession over them speaking and having spoken what they can't afford to defend and afford anyone to simultaneously to use the short words the way our founders wanted and needed them used. And that is note with chief attached to president. And we are capable of understanding the significance of Native Americans' rights, distinctly from our own, distinctly victims of the same breaching method, because we know that is the same course of black pupils / whites of eyes abridged. Not one has sledged, nor dug. Not one has pulled, not tugged. Even the worms. What are the worms going to eat? You keep taking away the grass, taking away the grass, taking away the grass. What are the worms going to eat? In other words, nature is going to bring its special difference elsewhere. And we could be that aspect of its nature that won't eat its nature unless it already ate itself. So, in other words, the Legion was first a hyperextension. In other words, and when humanity first mixed and interacted and maintained those interactions, it had nothing to do with the economy first. It was identity first. And that just happened to be because that just happens to be. That's what we use to discern that which all parts of space / existence share, vaccines. It carries things well not. Okay, thank you. So Legion is about this. Legion is about. See, this guy was said about. Could you speak a little bit about the bagels? There's something to do with bagels. There's something to do with people that were in my 6th grade class that have a whole bunch of direct and indirect ties to corners of streets near me, and to their roles with predicate acts. With like now they have families involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. These are also as interbranch and military as ones with a whole bunch of other countries. Off, but just a phenomenon. I don't know why someone would say a bagel and keep going out of their way to say greetings, doctor, because these are people that, like, there's a former Mayor Golden and people that were in my 6th grade class and from another class, and then one of the other teachers used to live on the street over, involved with the bagel, something about bagel. It has something to do with their roles with spots next to the state capitol in downtown Hartford, and their roles with the abuses of children. Also, further with a proven principal child offender off campus. I call on off campus is them roles with has something to do with. They've been filming illusions. They've been having investigators used remotely a certain type of victim slash hyper victim. We need investigators, but there's an extent that they never had. Um, that had not been separated from being differentially but increasingly criminally foreign influenced. And so everyone came through this and sees difference, fake sites, and then they have to fight with each other because everyone's kids are shared here and there abroad. And not one side is real. And the harder they try to be, you know, they're not using the word. They're not using the way. Which are those five? These are five distinct identities of order. How the value of truth before the order of the finite now is only increasing. That is an order itself. The order of the finite, not just the value of each finite detail, but the value of that order itself. It's hyperconjunction. The order we are active with, it comes with those two other orders. Our progressive value, this is sustained. What and how we are. Value that is already here now. Is with that. You know, each one of those identities with themselves. Where and how this hypergenesis is taking place. So anyway, it's weird. There was reported recently. There was a recent home break-in. It has something to do with an Asian family. Which God bless you people and welcome to the neighborhood. There's a house across the street from you guys. If I'm not even sure if it was the right house, I was told. But there's a house across the street from you that had a guy who came into my speech class the second time I had a speech class, and a class in high school in Wethersfield, who said he was the partner of Kevin Dillon. I never had a personal conversation with either of those speech class teachers. But it was recorded that and how a whole bunch of people tied to them in the conversations, the confessions of that guy who brought up that corner too note in that class. Those are also people with other roles with, like a Jamie Smith recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed roles with some people that are involved with some confirmed roles with people that know my name that I don't know their name, involved with some untimely deaths with the Wethersfield police and people on and off the library with the other countries with them 3 years, Afghanistan countries, things like that. And it's nothing personal against them. They're in Korean, Asian countries has there's other. That's the theme with the people involved with New York and Central Connecticut State University, and with my sixth grade class. With these are people. I in other words, they're making fake relationships and natures of relationships from us in the past. They were putting fake things in databases. So when we speak, it makes it look like we had communications with people we never even had communications with. We're sitting there doing our work. All exception nature they use criminally. And with added fake things. Increasingly each year at each campus. Relevant to where and to how this is at other locations manifest too. And where and how our subjects treatments. Sometimes it's weird that people speak that weird thing, because these are people with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, is also criminally involved with that corner with a Judge Smith and other judges, and people on all sides of my house involved with abuses of kids through time relevant. The kids. not just me, everyone. Now, so this is where they prevent people writing now because they invested the interbranch, the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, all that mixed, to roles with investigators having been used remotely, interbranch locations having been used remotely. What do you think that is? The course of black pupils, whites of eyes abridged. That's hurt of a lot of people left entrenched. The Constitution on a bridge is about Marbury versus Madison. Quote, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, unquote. And it's about, so this is UConn also involved. And they have all kind of lawyers involved criminally, all kind of methods since founding. So they've been using so they have single individuals. This was sustained, so it's way more than that. But they have single individuals with more hurt against people and against more people than there are streets in Hartford, Connecticut, with the individuals from Wethersfield involved with this. Also with all kinds of police forms and courts, families, and forms, and locations, roles, uses of campuses. Everyone's fake, and they knew they would use them fake, pretending other. They knew that no one would be allowed to speak what nature would reveal to us if we would observe that method which uses that voice as Native Americans before they had their, what nature wants each to voice. See, it locked everyone needing to blame other things other than themselves if they're going to pretend that practical reason, use Immanuel Kant's phrase, if they're going to pretend that sophistication has been anything other than criminal insidiousness, natures of it. In other words, since before our founding parents were born, before their parents' parents were born, before their parents at least were born. The suburbs were designed. Slavery was in North and South America. Already a part of the plan that they locked everyone into phases with the countries now individually grouped in together. Tactical artillery from how we are individuals grouped and species body of volume. So all kinds of medical corruption has been sustained because they have personal roles with all kinds of interbranch, as the names involved with all kinds of foreign. And they need to pretend that's personal. So they pretend they don't understand people while they are fabricating audio and video records, wire crimes, fabricating conversations with WFSB, with Fox News, influencing them to pretend it's personal and that they didn't do that. Attaching people to fake words when they asked them not to speak, they didn't want to speak in conjunction with that. And about legal cases, they lied about the actual outcome of legal cases and made fake conversations with me and with others too. And they did so also with proven federal criminals and police forms involved with them criminally since before they were caught. That's what's recorded, tied to the part that was recorded. So these are also people relevant further off the campuses with the policing of the schools playing these wire crime games. So Department of Education, Board of Education, get me the name of a parent who disbelieves anything I said. And I want a response for the confessions of the principal child offender and regarding the Emmett and the rest of the leaders of the kids and the ones who use my name and backgrounds with the interbranch forging and switching names, putting fake things in the records. Let's get them onto paper pretty fast so I don't have to go start seeking, looking at you know how you have the comments blocked. Because you lie about the nature of what people speak. And when you're not lying about that, You're needing to hide other things that are recorded relevant. You guys are pretending passions and emotions. Debbie Gold pretended passions and emotions with me as a role with behind my back with databases, also with some O'Brien family, where mayors and uh, police families from Hartford and Wethersfield have roles with some judges and their families with areas of overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their uses of how a whole bunch of countries are bottlenecked where and how we have shared campuses together. And these are people at the locations next to them. Ray Colella communicated that, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed that there is a Judge Smith, and that there are other judges tied to him and his friends, like a Della Fera family and other boyfriends of Sandra Spada and her sisters, and Antonetta Spada, and other sisters I don't know the name of, and a mother. I don't know the name of her mother, but she worked at Wethersfield High School. And I don't know the name of her father, but he has a spot in Newington. And they're involved. Like one time, he asked me, he brought me to a place near a reservoir to ask me a bunch of times if I messed around with her or slept with her. I don't remember if he asked me which or which. But these are people he was already recorded, involved with a Judge Smith speaking fake things into records, with people that were involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with middle school kids, and with sexual, medical, and judicial worse than incompetence, roles with bad things that happen with them, and with names per their uses of roles. With it has something to do with their roles with like on off Town Line Drive, that shopping center. There's intelligence community or whatever associated with that. And with judges and prosecutors and people tied to the names there. They have similar confessions tied to that, where and how it's involved with their roles with the uses of corners of buildings and of streets and of wire crime roles. And, identity theft, fraud, slanders on and off campuses behind people's backs. And where they make exceptions tied to that because where and how they're exploiting the simultaneous that aren't even exceptions, but they don't follow the rules. And where and how they get away with little magic tricks, pretending they're following the rules, is relevant also to where and to how. When I was in the campus, same one with a different principal, I never had a problem with that principal. I know they influenced himself and his family though, to roles with the Harris family with identity thefts and frauds against me. I went with that school from first grade to sixth grade with people on off other campuses I went to. I went the year before that. In other words, they're connecting kids to roles with instances put in databases criminally and uses of that. There are a whole bunch of people from Quinnipiac University involved with judges and prosecutors and FBI. Also has names involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, with planting evidences on and off campuses. Little magic tricks, identity theft, fraud, slanders, people saying fake things, uses of other people's names, and they don't let the people know the others' names. So they only get the wrong account and make that self-valued. And everyone, you guys leave out details. These are places associated with our elections. These are places, people and names associated with predicate acts on off election locations in Wethersfield and to Branch, on off religious locations, uses of that insidiousness, effectively employed by countries individually grouped with psychiatry that pretends they pretend people have uncommon beliefs, and they'll pretend you have a mental problem because you believe in you believe other. Say you don't want to take drugs because they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have their patients and criminals and police forms and nurses and doctors with Hartford Hospital, a whole bunch of them involved with as names involved on my street, and with the people that have ties to that corner that was brought up by Jamie Smith and a David Smith. They have roles with Rob Rodriguez, who and people involved with Millwoods Park through time, planting evidences, putting slanders, making it, apparently filming kids. There's a kid that looks like he's related to the Leahy family, and there's a little girl with a picture of a little girl named Leahy. A Leahy family attached me to fake conversations, and they're using their little daughter and their kids to pretend other, and they have roles with some police forms and programs, and people with programs with them on off Millwoods Park and other parks in intercities, where they have roles with drugs, crimes, and medicines crimes and sexual crimes, and as the only encounters at the same time. Also relevant where and how they make subject treatments, and have people that are supposed to help out advocates for women and difference, where they had roles. Keeping exception nature, how being and having been exploited to keep the simultaneous lied about, they're keeping that left out. Hyper simultaneous uses things like value, in other words, for our discernment, distinctly from how computers use words like value, any word. So in other words, the significance of things, vaccines. We have to have a button that can communicate with the algorithm where and how interbranch are recorded involved. There's New Britain's Superior Court's Facebook page, and then further how it became more Facebook pages of New Britain Superior Court. It has roles with a whole bunch of names and police forms involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. And even if it wasn't him, that guy looked just like James Comey, it's involved with James Comey and his uses of, quote, right to lie phrase, unquote, right to lie, unquote. And with Congress, because individually grouped in together, it is evidence, hyper evidential that and how they are abridged. Congress, the courts, and the executive branch, and the logic of all those private tied to them. Now, these were and are countless names, and where and how. So Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of names involved with the criminal justice program and with the training of state police through time where they've had roles with the prosecutors and judges, and as names involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Granted, they have it them implied apart with training plainclothes police on off Yukon or whatever their roles with the overt criminal enterprises that on Facebook are recorded. Also with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police has roles with them with 3 officers. They say they have 1 officer named McGee, but they have 3 officers that said their name was McGee. Now they have others with the name Sullivan over the phone with the Wethersfield town offices in the library, and the schools further recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved. A whole bunch of people with Middletown, Connecticut involved, like a Bob Chase is involved. He made confessions regarding a Phil Cololo, and people with the name Christine further involved with him with various natures of courts. And see that forensics location associated with a Bob Chase in those courts and locations. They have roles through time with various cases, various natures of federal criminals since before they got caught. They have roles with federal crimes together, including the principal's child offender. The Bob Chase has federal evidences crimes with. He says also with Phil Collo and with a Christine he didn't give the last name of, which was also done. They did the same thing. There are doctors with that place involved with him doing that. And they also have physical delusions, identity delusions, and nature delusions relevant with the criminally foreign influence, fact cheating nature, and uses of database crime rules, pretending passions and emotions too, perjury rules, while pretending other at various cases, at various courts involved. Also, per the tricks they've been using in the background to get to play little tricks. Oh, this, like a little kid games. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes are recorded, but the means to discern them require you guys to follow the rules. And this is going to show how there have been criminal foreign influence interpretations of what that means. And so one way redeems. So the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police has roles with a Phil Collo and some Mendez police on off the Wethersfield Police Department and on off Fox Connecticut News, involved with wire crimes, falsified police reports with child offenders, even sexual, even medical through time. And they're planting little evidences and roles with predicate acts in various natures of cases per their uses of of locations and broadcasted predicate acts, lies, illusions, identity theft, fraud, slanders. No, we're leveraged against everyone, including our founders. You cannot defend Marbury versus Madison and James Madison's identity nor George Washington's identity properly without explaining the breaching method that was measuring and maintaining what everyone said through everyone else, through additional motivations other than its own, employed for its own. Breaching screen, tools, weapons, worse. So, in other words, they understand what I'm saying. The Interbranch switch names. People with Rocky Hill High School has roles with these police from Wethersfield Police Department, with the FBI and state police, with a guy named McGee. But there are 3 of them that have been using that name, and they say they only have 1. And these are also roles with falsified police reports where they switched the names of the officers on various police reports for the same arrest with a charge of harassment, but no, with whatever charge, but they put no writing. And so they keep stacking more fake things. These are also people, there's a Yagman family involved with a Leahy family and with some other doctors he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with federal crimes with drugs and medicines and with behind people's backs on campuses, roles with predicate acts, identity thefts and frauds, with a Mendez family through time. I don't know them. I ever had a class with them in my life. Tried to fake there one time by walking by coming into my class. Also, there's a Thomas Potter, and there's a Mr. Potter who has ties to people with the state judicial branch offices who use my name, criminally foreign influence involved with identity thefts and frauds. Also with a Pandolf family, and a Joshua Julian, and Joshua I never met in my life. He's one of the ones on my street involved with the police, breaking into houses through time relevant, as the morals will tell you. And it has relevance to the people involved with the corner of Southstein Highway and Town Line Drive, and the roles all along Route 3 with criminally foreign influence uses of that, with ties to instances at campuses relevant and uses of those names and of their natures relevant, and also how they get how strangers get in the way of people's conversations when they asked to report confessions that brought up the school in the first place. It was one sentence. I didn't get a response. You guys keep talking. You're making it worse. Not just for me consciously, you guys. You make it worse for yourself. You need to get on paper on time, because they've been using. There's a Leahy family that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed pretending conversations with me. Now they had they've been using the campuses of little kids and roles with mixed natures of abuses of kids, with their own involved, even abuses of their kids at the same time. Help them, but we're going to help them economically. You know, these are interbranch families, personally and professionally criminally involved, with this Leahy family involved with overt criminal enterprises, and with the names on my street involved with the wire crimes, and with the confessions relevant, and people who had been put in my classes. I forgot they used to live here. Mark and Vinny. I don't know. In other words, Juliana. And they moved to another location. It has something to do, and that was before a Cololo family came in and when I was in fourth grade. And already the O'Brien family and a former mayor had been involved with from other classrooms, putting fake things in databases and pretending passions and emotions behind my back with adults and with their families, and with overt criminal enterprises and private ones and various natures of federal criminals before they got caught. Also, since still tied to them and still involved with them with other natures and methods of federal evidences, crimes, identity thefts, and frauds, instances, roles, pretending passions, emotions tied to it, pretending motivations relevant. See, this is why so in other words, a police chief Cintron has a daughter named Jessica Cintron. I never met, was never around her. And Jonathan Mayano was one of the ones who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by himself and others that various natures of courts and police forms are criminally involved with him on and off campuses and on and off New Britain Superior Court, with the people further criminally involved with sexual rape threats on the Britain Superior Court, with as ones then and now, further having used their fake passion crimes and narratives and backgrounds to force not told on what I caught them doing with the principal child defenders campus, and confessed to me over the phone and on a bunch of telephone messages, confessed to others too, relevant, and statements about other natures of child bad things involved, and roles with untimely deaths relevant. So it has something to do with Danielle Perron, a Mark Violet, and other two Caron brothers. They apparently took a picture of me, and with the Justin Kovitskas, Mark Violet, and two Caron brothers. They pictured and a Danielle Perron. They apparently took a picture of me to make it look like I know her. They made two other exceptions with her family, and they were all they're tied to they make confess, demonstrate for they're involved with identity thefts and frauds. As people that live near me, I don't know them. They went out of their way to pretend other, with people tied to the corner of Saustine Highway and Town Line Drive. This is also other town where towns shift locations, which is one of the things relevant because these are also people at corners of buildings. There was also Daryl Chandler, who was his recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed of one of the ones involved with the name Cololo and people tied to them at Newington locations, like on off Dearborn Street in Newington, and people with names of families near there involved with federal crimes, with the Wethersfield police wire crimes, falsified police reports with them. They have families. I used to have conversations with police criminally when I was a kid, and they pretended I know these officers and I had conversations with them because they trapped themselves. That's why Chris Walters gave an affidavit years ago, but they also did that as illusion because they brought up the subjects and they brought up the names, and they did it to make I look like I knew them before that. The only exception, and all exceptions they exploit. I one time I knew Chris Walters from Tiger Cubs. You know, you push the thing down the track. So in other words, and there's a Sal Savio. I never had a conversation with him in my life. One time he made a statement to me in grammar school, and one time he made a confession to me, a one-word sentence. I didn't respond to it when he was an adult. That is one of the ones on off two-route highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane. These are also police forms involved with real estate transactions. They should not have sold these houses until they take care of this first. Make sure I get the names of the people tied to this Anna Dillon, and know how she uses the name Anna Dillon, sometimes Annie Dillon, or is that two different people? Because they have name switching and forging roles with the interbranch, as people involved with sequence shifts and names on off the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center, leading up to it a long time, contemplatively having been plotting towards that location, World Trade Center, and influencing the names tied to it. And they have that involved with the investigations. Investigators won't get me a response, so they have something to do with Dan King, with the Heather Hansen and the Joe DeMauro and a Kerr family. They have roles with some police, with some wire crimes, and with the Facebook pages of the schools and of the courts criminally. And they're hiding lie progressions because they've been using the databases to stack predicate act solutions in there, also with areas of overt criminal enterprises involved with these same names. And there's a Mr. Neville, who was my English class teacher in middle school, who's recorded involved with the uses of roles with the names with the overt criminal enterprises, with the little kids who are attaching them to other fake locations with the kids from other classes that aren't even in their classes, attaching people to putting the people around everyone to do this. And then they're lying about the motivations of people when we need to use their names and others' names. So we don't have interbranch locations that can handle issues. We have that recorded since founding as evidence. So we have to have mandated law followed here. Clear. Paul Zano, I don't know him. He sought me out he said that him repeating the word Jew had something to do with him being silent and me being silent too. No, I didn't respond. I didn't, at Trinity College in the past, he was involved with predicate acts with people on off my grammar school, on off my middle school. I never saw him on around my middle school ever. I never saw him around my grammar school either. Once or twice, sometimes we would sit next to each other. That was forced. He would, in other words, we didn't talk because it was like it was a thing. I don't know what he was doing. They were putting fake things in the thing with him. He's involved with like an identity theft, fraud, slander method with the people involved with sequence shifts with him and with Luigi Guerrero. I don't know his sister's name. I don't even know them to have hard feelings against them. I just know that, they're trying to give me reasons to have hard feelings with them because they need to hide their roles with the courts' names involved criminally and the overt criminal enterprises in other countries involved. There's a Dave Santangelo and people that live near Jonathan Mayano. He also has involved with this, where he grew up, and involved where he reportedly is now on Elm Street, which is involved with people at UConn with him, with a Violet family and people with the military involved with falsified police reports and the home break-ins and car break-ins in the past, as people with falsified police reports also that have been attaching kids to fake locations. They've been doing crimes and blaming others for it. And they've been it has something to do with their roles on off the the community center of Weathersfield, and as their roles with names next to the community center at spots next to it, involved with relevant relative identity theft, frauds, slanders instances, and how they went out of their way to pretend their emotion, lie about what came before, how I know them. That's one of the things they do with against everyone relative to where and how roles with our self-valued interbranch. At the same time, the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and other natures of criminal insidiousness, natures of positive and negative treatments, identity treatment, at the same time. So it's not. It's very simple. I called the school, and I still didn't get a response. And I caught way worse since before they caught that. And there are more digital on Twitter that also they have that there was an FBI on Twitter before Elon Musk had Twitter. The FBI was involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other FBI, one with the name Ian, who's one of the ones involved with Middletown locations, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders at public locations, formal interbranch locations. These are on off the state judicial branch offices of Faenza family and their extended family recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed all these confessions as strangers tied to the Dillons, enrolled people involved with child offenders on off the state of judicial branch offices and the houses next to it, involved with them criminally, also with the investigators tied to the spots next to of the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso. That the Faenza family said that communicated, not said, communicated that they have awareness that they have roles with being influenced to federal evidences, crimes, and natures of identity thefts and frauds with people on off locations next to WFSB and next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford. And as people involved on off the state judicial branch offices on Two Rod Highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane, who have been involved through time with his neighbors. He said also, he demonstrated also as the Sal Civil, as one of the ones from my grammar school, who's involved with the former Mayor Gold and his family, also with other people that made confessions tied to this. I don't know. In the course of this, too, me trying to get a response for the principal child defenders campus, he has roles with other principals, kids, the abuses of them, and made self-value roles with it because they don't understand it. Everyone's forced to speak through others criminally. All exceptions, exception nature, demonstration of the same thing. And where that's relevant because one identity as your own identity is simultaneously 5 distinct identities of sequence nature, for example. Because space/existence is one identity, but it's distinctly space, it's distinctly existence. No. I self-promote vaccines. So there's a girl who told that on me for bringing in a knife to school. I didn't get in trouble for it because I said I got it from the, I was going to get in trouble for it. And I said, but look, I got it from the magazine that was in the library. And then I didn't get in trouble for it. And I never had any problems with Mr. Murphy. Now there's a Kevin Harris, and there are other kids that some medical families affected to identity thefts and fraud, little games through the boys and girls relative to where they hurt the boys and the girls sickly distinctly. But they also maintain its self-value so they can keep each age of correlation nature. Incapable of going back and incapable of affording at each age of affording a voice that will use the significance of finite details, use the significance of that which is simultaneously relevant to logic, reason, mind, identity, sciences, locations, nature. let alone the environment. If you care about the environment legitimately, you care about what's hyper additional to itself as itself. You know, you care about nature. We know that people involved with the rules of colonization, they couldn't speak about nature, but they would have to speak about nature. You know, but reality, they couldn't afford reality's reality and the value of that, which simultaneously they needed to be discerned, to be able to discern what's positive or negative to itself simultaneously, where more and more of the identity of forever nature is being made, where it will only stay increasingly positive to itself. All exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other are really in demonstration simultaneously of how it uses how it is one identity of consciousness, except for how it is 1/3/5 identities of sequence nature / simultaneous nature, each one bound three ways as sequence / simultaneous nature. And where more and more of the volume is being made, that is being made through temporary space / existence. We know the extent, we just don't know the extent of it. We know also that offensively, religions have what is not logical as part of their substance. And we're supposed to have freedom of religion. But we still have doctors and nurses that are fabricating conversations with people to pretend they had conversations about religions. And two, are using all the exception nature criminally as criminal insidiousness natures to pretend they have physical delusions. I mean, that's my word, physical delusions. Physical delusions, nature delusions, identity delusions. They don't have the sophistication to handle this because they have roles with that. And they have roles with crime methods that involve databases and uses of location so long that they had to hide live progressions to other spots. Now, when they arrest people and when people are fighting angrily, sometimes to get people to, so rather than solve the things, the problems, they attach the people to fake raising their voice with others and to fake calm demeanors and meetings. In other words, this is what they're still doing at databases. So we don't have the right to religion because they're just putting fake words in our mouths. You don't have police. You can't call the police because they still have roles with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones and the other police forms involved, including military police with the switching names with the interbranch. So keep it simple and stay on what I said. Make sure I get a response for the campus that has been planting lies with Local 230. Per them. And with this Leahy family and with the digital crimes on Facebook. They're speaking about people's behavior after they're already caught involved with bad things on Facebook, rape threats, New Britain Superior Court, other passion crimes, because I caught them before the World Trade Center attack. People associated with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford Court, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, with them criminally involved also with former director of the FBI and with his co-defendants and with the depositions of themselves leading up to that and since and before that, before they were even caught for those things. That when I was a kid, they were involved with pension thefts and stuff. There were readings of statutes like where you could lie about the person you're going against in an election. So they were using rights to lie where they don't have right, and they were timing that by spreading lies on my campuses and they'll know you're going to come around this corner, and you're not going to be expecting it because it's someone you don't even know, but you'll recognize them after someone. In other words, and they're going to say something, and then they're going to not give your answer. They're going to fear your answer too. And if you don't give an answer, they're going to exploit that too. That's one of the things that I noticed since grammar school they do. Where and how they have employed the crime methods of the adults from off campuses, juxtaposed with other motivations and natures of other adults on and off the campuses. So a whole bunch of people with the Institute of Living on the campus of Hartford Hospital. There are places like this across the country, relevant to where and how from other locations they've needed to hide line progressions, where and how integrity needed to pretend it could speak, because only fake integrity was allowed to speak, where and how it is most critical, like regarding that breaching method, the predicate acts fact treatment nature method against the Native American words. It means to them. That is one way, that stayed. Then hyper additional ways. Once on the books, now the colonization's upon them. And they're fighting now with themselves, syntactically. And they're making positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, name treatments. Increasingly, while they're doing that, even when it's right or wrong, tactical, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. Not divide and conquer. Divide and or unite. They need insidious natures of unity and of negative simultaneously to all locations, areas, and states to screen what's really involved with where and how, and why they don't have smart and what's smart and who's intelligent allowed to be the voice as who's going to show. Use our native means. And it doesn't mean it's going to be a Native American. Everyone was separated from this way to talk. But so once we start it, it does not stop, it only increases. It shows that it leads itself, the identity of space/existence. So there's a Debbie Gold, I don't know, who pretended other, and she pretended passions and emotions to do that. It's weird how the medical community does little games through little boys and girls, and they exploit at other locations through time. There are prosecutors and retired and standing judges involved with juxtaposed distinct natures of abuses of each age of fact treatment nature with this. These are people involved with sick uses of courts associated with elderly homes, also tied to their roles with all kinds of natures of organized crime, tied to their roles with the psychiatry and the physical delusions, and the names forging and switching, and database crime methods, and wire crime methods, and mail crime methods, and switching names. Let's get them on paper. Let's go. Judge Napolitano, let's get them on paper. Let's get them on paper with this Leahy family. Let's go in order. 3 times I was forced to go to Hartford Hospital. 2 times they made stuff up to force me there because they know I caught them the first time. And they demonstrated a whole bunch of people they had there were ones involved with the names on off my street, involved with the Wethersfield police and other police forms and courts. And the gangs I caught involved with this, with untimely deaths. They brought up the child to campus too. Now, these are also the people on and off Trinity College involved with the Joshua Stryker and with other people that were planting evidences with FBI Director Luskin and people interstates and foreign involved with this, and with an Oliveri family through time, criminally foreign influence uses of my teacher and of the kids. They involved with child abuse with this. Not per their stories and narratives about the relationship between the teacher and the student. And they use that also as roles with predicate acts against my father and my sister's father by lying to my sister, but pretending to know me behind my back, and pretending to know me with her friends and the teachers. Well, everyone's sensibility is locked, leaving out details. In other words, there's nothing personal. I just needed Eric Oliveri and the other people on off Trinity College with this Joshua with Stryker and the people that were involved, timed intercities on off CCSU also rolls with Joshua Julian on off the principal child defenders campus and on the Facebook pages of the schools in the interbranch. Because these are interbranch that have been using these locations to hide live progressions from where and how I caught them using the sciences as manifest, as they're actually manifest with each location too. That's relevant to where and how. Everyone pretends that the Constitution's about what amendment means what. It means get the Constitution unabridged, and real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. Not them pretending it's about your debate about what's morally correct with instances while your people that are recorded still involved consciously, at least to an extent, involved with fact nature oriented nature predicate acts and natures of criminal instances, natures of positive and negative treatment. That's what logic is when it denies the significance of the course of black people's rights of eyes abridged, let alone where and how it is what it was and is observable. You know, conducting ties, conducive ties to the nature and method of slavery relative. So New York City, there are people from Weathersfield Interbranch. There's nothing personal against them. They had to pretend passions and emotions. That's one of the things that connected people. That's one of the things I've been delaying. Well, I have not been delaying too. I spoke clearly many times that I caught them using campuses criminally. Now these are police forms in our interbranch family members, but these are also overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of countries they're hiding behind. So get them on paper who disbelieves, because they're not hiding behind them legitimately, because it's going to be worse. You know. In other words, why should I have to list all these names and things? And give me a response for these people with the Middletown location, these Whiting's forensics location has a whole bunch of ties to people on the child defender registry and rolls with crimes with their patients and criminals since before they got caught, and with their ties to the same house, tied to the names brought up, including a Mayor Gold, and so make sure I get a response for the Weathersfield Police and have them pick one name in sequence and respond for that. And because these are also people involved with Rocky Hill schools criminally too, and Weathersfield schools further criminally, and New Britain schools and Newington schools, and with the police forms involved. You're going to see why and how there was they've been using their wire crime methods and acts and actually recorded natures that are relevant to topics that have been in the news, like the school shootings. They've been using the schools to hide live progressions from cases in the past where they've been using the databases to stack illusions and then speaking them and pretending them and show needs and means to do it and to get away with it by others. And that's where breaching method, how they use their time and their logic remotely, where that is also recorded relevant. And their physical delusions, their identity delusions, nature delusions. I'm not a doctor. I'm a delineator of delusions from the criminally foreign influence, souls and natures involved with the slavery of humanity and then the Constitution unabridged. Boxings. I teach you things belong.